There's a woman who has chosen a different path. She is not bitter. She is not broken. She is not incomplete. She is whole. And the world may look at her and wonder, why does she live alone without a man? Why does she choose solitude over companionship, independence over dependence, her own voice over someone else's approval? But hear me when I say this is not a life of lack. This is a life of strength. She does not live alone because she cannot have love. She lives alone because she has learned to love herself so deeply that she refuses to be diminished by the wrong company. This is a woman who has walked through fire, who has endured betrayal, who has survived silence, rejection, and loneliness, and yet she stands tall. She has discovered that peace is more precious than pretense, that freedom is more valuable than forced affection. Joy is too costly to be traded for an imitation of love. She does not wait on validation from another to define her worth. She knows her crown is not given by a man, it is given by God, and no hand on earth can remove what heaven has already placed upon her head. And so she chooses stillness over chaos, authenticity over performance, and destiny over distraction. She knows that being alone is not the same as being abandoned. In fact, it is in her solitude that she has found her strength, her purpose, her voice. This is why she lives alone without a man. Not because she is against love, but because she refuses to settle for less than what love truly is. She is not running from partnership, but she is standing in her power, waiting for a connection that aligns with her soul, not one that breaks it. And when people ask, how can she do it? How can she live this way? The answer is simple, because she knows who she is, and she will never again trade her identity for the illusion of companionship. There is a truth that many struggle to embrace, yet it is the foundation of every strong, confident, and purpose-driven life. You cannot pour into others if your own cup is empty. You cannot give love to the world if you do not first learn to give love to yourself. Self-love is not arrogance, it is not selfishness, and it is not pride. Self-love is preservation. It is wholeness. It is the refusal to betray yourself just to be accepted by others. It is choosing to rise each morning with the decision to honor your body, protect your mind, and guard your spirit as treasures too sacred to be wasted. When a woman says, I live alone because I love myself too much to live in the wrong environment, she is not speaking weakness. She is speaking wisdom. For there are far too many who settle for companionship that costs them their peace, relationships that drain their energy, and partnerships that silence their voice. But when you love yourself, you set a standard that cannot be lowered because you know the price of your worth. Self-love is not born overnight. It is carved out of seasons of pain, disappointment, and betrayal. It comes when you have given too much of yourself to people who did not value it. It comes when you have poured and poured until you are left empty, only to discover that no one ever thought to pour back into you. And in that moment, something awakens inside. You realize that waiting on others to love you the way you deserve is a gamble, but choosing to love yourself is a guarantee. Loving yourself is about refusing to apologize for being who you are. It is about walking into every room with your head held high, not because you think you are better than anyone else, but because you finally understand that you are not less than anyone else. It is about wearing your scars without shame, because every scar is a testimony of survival, proof that you went through the storm but did not drown. The world will often try to make you feel guilty for choosing yourself first. They will call you selfish. They will call you proud. They will whisper that you are too strong, too independent, too unwilling to compromise. But hear me, those words are not truth. They are intimidation. People who cannot control you will always label you because it bothers them to see you living free. Self-love is not about rejecting others. It is about refusing to reject yourself. When you love yourself, you learn the power of boundaries. You stop saying yes when your heart is screaming no. You stop carrying people who refuse to walk. You stop apologizing for your standards. You stop allowing access to people who only come to take and never come to give. You begin to understand that not everyone deserves a seat at your table, because not everyone is willing to eat with gratitude. Some only come to consume what you prepared without ever bringing something of their own. Loving yourself teaches you that it's better to have an empty seat beside you than to have a seat filled with the wrong person. Self-love means choosing peace, even if it means choosing solitude. It means learning to enjoy your own company, to sit in silence without feeling lonely, to walk alone without feeling abandoned. Because when you know yourself and love yourself, you realize that you are never truly alone. The presence of God, the strength of your purpose, the power of your own inner voice surrounds you, and that is enough. Too many people run from themselves because they have not yet learned to love themselves. They drown their days in noise, their nights in distractions, their hearts in shallow relationships, all because they fear facing the silence. But silence is where healing happens. Silence is where you meet yourself again. Silence is where you discover the strength you never thought you had. And when you step into that quiet place of self-love, you begin to realize that solitude is not a punishment, it is preparation. A woman who loves herself will never gang for attention because she already gives herself affirmation. She will never again settle for being tolerated. She knows she deserves to be celebrated. She will never again chase after someone who walks away because she understands that rejection is redirection. She will never again shrink herself to fit into small spaces because she knows she was created to stand tall. Self-love is the foundation upon which every other form of love must be built. If you do not know how to love yourself, you will always misinterpret the love of others. You will mistake manipulation for affection, control for care, and possession for passion. When you love yourself, your spirit becomes trained to recognize what is real and to reject what is counterfeit. You stop negotiating with your worth. You stop discounting your value. You stop lowering your standards to match someone else's insecurities. The truth is this: you teach others how to love you by the way you love yourself. If you constantly neglect yourself, people will think it's acceptable to neglect you. If you constantly belittle yourself, people will think it's acceptable to dishonor you. But when you honor yourself, protect yourself, and invest in yourself, you set the bar for how you expect others to treat you. Self-love requires courage. Courage to walk away when staying would destroy you. Courage to say no even when others demand yes. Courage to stand tall even when the world tries to cut you down. Courage to celebrate yourself even if no one else claps. Courage to believe that you are worthy of the life you dream of even if others cannot see it. Let me tell you, when you love yourself, you attract differently. You no longer attract out of desperation, but out of wholeness. You no longer cling to people just to avoid being alone because you understand that being alone with peace is better than being together with chaos. No longer tolerate love that breaks you because you know real love will build you. So when someone asks, why does she live alone without a man? The answer is not loneliness, it is love. Because self-love has taught her that her presence is enough. Peace is priceless, her joy is sacred, and her life is not waiting for someone else to complete it. She is already complete. She is already whole. She is already loved by herself and by the one who created her. To live with self-love is to live with power, with clarity, with dignity. It is to refuse to bow to fear, to shame, to insecurity. It is to walk boldly into your destiny, knowing that the greatest relationship you will ever have is the one you cultivate with yourself. And from that place, every other relationship, romantic, family, friendships, must align with the love you already give yourself, or else it cannot stay. Self-love first. Because without it, you will always seek in others what can only be found within. But with it, you will rise, you will flourish, and you will never again forget your worth. There comes a point in life when you must decide what matters most: the peace within your soul or the image you present to others. Too many people live their lives performing, pretending, smiling through pain, clapping for what they do not even believe in, all because they fear being misunderstood or rejected. There is a freedom that comes when you stop living for appearances and start living for truth. That freedom is called peace. And let me tell you, peace is far greater, far more valuable, far more necessary than the shallow approval of people. Peace over pretense means refusing to put on a mask just to fit in. It means refusing to carry a weight that was never meant for you. just because others expect it. It means refusing to play small or act happy in situations where your soul is suffocating. Pretense will drain you. Peace will restore you. Pretense will make you a prisoner, but peace will set you free. Some people live their entire lives trapped in performance. They wear the mask of I'm fine when inside they are broken. They wear the mask of I'm strong when their heart is exhausted. They wear the mask of I've got it all together when behind closed doors they cry themselves to sleep. Pretense convinces you that if you just keep smiling, no one will see the truth. But what good is it to be admired by the world if you are dying on the inside? Choosing peace means you choose honesty. It means you can look at your life and say, I am not where I want to be. I refuse to pretend I am. It means you can stand in your truth even when it makes others uncomfortable. It means you are no longer addicted to applause, committed to alignment. You are not seeking to impress, you are seeking to rest. There is nothing more exhausting than living in pretense. When you are pretending, you are constantly rehearsing. You are constantly calculating what to say, how to act, who to be. You are adjusting your mask every time someone new walks into the room. But when you live in peace, you live in authenticity. You wake up and show up as yourself, not the version that others expect, not the version that will be most accepted, but the version that is real. Peace allows you to breathe again, to exist without the crushing pressure of performance. Peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of truth. It is the decision to walk in alignment with who you really are, no matter the cost. You may lose some people when you choose peace. You may lose some relationships, some invitations, some connections. But hear me clearly, anything you lose by being real was never meant for you in the first place. If it can only exist in pretense, it was not a blessing, it was a burden. Peace over pretense also means refusing to pretend for love. How many people stay in relationships just because they don't want others to know the truth? They smile on social media, but they are crying in their private life. They hold hands in public, but they are at war behind closed doors. That is not love, that is performance. Peace says, I will not sacrifice my sanity just to keep up an image of romance. I will not pretend to be happy just to satisfy the expectations of others. I will choose me even if it means walking alone. Peace over pretense also applies to success. Many are chasing titles, houses, cars, clothes, not because those things fulfill them, because they make others applaud. They chase the image of success instead of the substance of fulfillment. But let me tell you, there are millionaires with mansions who cannot sleep at night because they chose pretense over peace. There are people who have everything money can buy, but nothing their soul needs. Real success is not what you show on the outside. It's the calm you carry on the inside. Peace means your mind is not constantly at war with itself. Peace means you can look in the mirror and recognize the person staring back at you. Peace means you do not have to lie about your life just to impress people who are not even invested in your growth. Peace means you can sit in silence and be content. Pretense will always cost more than it gives. It costs you your authenticity, your energy, your clarity. It will rob you of joy, rob you of rest, rob you of identity. But peace multiplies. Peace gives you strength. Peace restores your body. Peace calms your mind. Peace nurtures your spirit. Peace allows you to build relationships that are real, work that is meaningful, and a life that is true. You do not owe anyone a performance. You do not owe anyone the version of yourself that hides your truth. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself honesty. You owe yourself freedom. And when you finally choose peace over pretense, you discover that you are lighter. You discover that you can smile and mean it. You discover that you can love and feel it. You discover that you can rest without guilt. Let them talk. Let them whisper. Let them misjudge. You are not here to live their story. You are here to live yours. People will always have opinions, but opinions do not pay the price for your soul. Opinions do not heal your heart. Opinions do not carry you through the night. So why would you sacrifice your peace for the sake of keeping up appearances for people who don't even live your life? It takes courage to choose peace over pretense. It takes courage to walk away from relationships that look good on the outside but are toxic on the inside. It takes courage to leave the job that pays well but drains your soul. It takes courage to stop smiling for the cameras and start crying for your healing. It takes courage to be real in a world that rewards fake, but that courage will save your life. Peace over pretense is a declaration. It is saying, I am no longer interested in living a lie. I am no longer interested in performing for applause. I am no longer interested in chasing approval. I choose me. I choose truth. I choose rest. I choose peace. And when you make that choice, something powerful happens. The right people will find you. The ones who love you for who you are, not who you pretend to be. The right opportunities will align with you, the ones that match your values, not just your image. The right love will embrace you, the kind that brings calm instead of chaos, healing instead of harm. Peace over pretense is not just a phrase, it is a lifestyle. It is the daily decision to live free, to live true, to live whole. And once you taste peace, you will never again trade it for the shallow comfort of pretending. So when they ask, why does she live this way? Why does she walk away from what looks good? The answer is simple, because she values what feels right. Because she understands that peace is priceless. Because she knows that pretense is prison, but peace, that peace, is freedom. There comes a moment in every person's journey when they must decide, do I live chained to the approval, resources, and presence of others, or do I rise into the freedom God has already placed inside of me? Dependence can feel safe. It is a false safety. It can look like comfort, but it is really captivity. Freedom, on the other hand, is riskier, lonelier at times, and harder to carry. But it is the only path that leads to real fulfillment, real growth, and real destiny. Freedom over dependence means refusing to let your life be dictated by the hands of others. It means no longer leaning on people so heavily that without them, you collapse. It means breaking free from the need for constant validation, constant approval, constant permission. It is standing tall in your own God, given identity, and declaring, I may walk alone for a season. I will never again be bound by chains that were never meant for me. Dependence will tell you that you are not enough by yourself. It will whisper that you need someone else's money, someone else's love, someone else's attention, someone else's hand to make it. Freedom speaks differently. Freedom says, I am whole even if I am overlooked. I am strong even if I am alone. I am valuable even if no one applauds me. I can build, I can create, I can rise, because the power inside me is greater than the limitations outside me. Dependence looks easy, but it comes with a high cost. When you depend on people, you give them control. You hand them the keys to your peace, your confidence, your joy. If they approve, you smile. If they reject, you collapse. If they leave, you break. But freedom teaches you that your life cannot be controlled by shifting hands. Freedom anchors you in a deeper truth that your value is fixed, your worth is unshakable, and your destiny is not in anyone's pocket. Freedom is not about rebellion. It is about responsibility. It means you stop blaming others for where you are and start taking ownership of where you're going. It means you stop waiting for someone else to save you and realize that the power to rise has been in you all along. Dependence will keep you in cycles, waiting while wishing, begging, hoping. Freedom breaks the cycle and says, if no one opens the door, I will build my own door. If no one believes in me, believe in myself. If no one claps for me, I will clap for myself until the world hears my sound. Dependence often disguises itself as love. How many relationships look like romance on the outside, but are really prisons on the inside? When you are dependent, you settle for partners who control you, dictate your every move, and convince you that you cannot live without them. But love is not control. Love is freedom. If someone must shrink you to keep you, that is not love, it is bondage. Real love allows you to breathe, to grow, to rise, to flourish. That is why a woman who chooses freedom over dependence will never again tolerate a love that requires her to silence her voice. Dependence also hides in success. Some people stay in jobs they hate because they are dependent on the paycheck, even though the paycheck is costing them their purpose. Others stay bound to opportunities that look glamorous but rob them of peace. But freedom says, I would rather start small in alignment than grow big in chains. I would rather walk in purpose without applause than live in pretense with approval. When you choose freedom, You learn how to stand on your own 2 feet. You learn that you can pay your own bills, make your own decisions, and trust your own instincts. You learn that you don't need to be rescued, you need to be released. You learn that waiting on others to carry you will only keep you crawling. Choosing to rise will teach you how to run. Freedom requires courage. Dependence feels easier because it allows you to hide. It allows you to point to others when life doesn't work out. But freedom demands accountability. It forces you to look in the mirror and say, I cannot keep waiting for them. I cannot keep blaming them. I cannot keep leaning on them. I must rise. I must build. I must walk forward in faith. Choosing freedom over dependence is not about rejecting help. It is about rejecting chains. It is not about isolating yourself. It is about refusing to tie your identity to anyone else's opinion or support. Freedom means you can accept help without being owned by it. You can receive love without being controlled by it. You can enjoy companionship without being dependent on it. Freedom means you are whole. Everything else you receive is an addition, not a necessity for survival. There is a sacred strength that comes when you are free. You stop begging for validation. You stop chasing people who walk away. You stop fearing the loss of things that were never meant to be permanent. You stop trading your voice for comfort. You start to live. You start to breathe. You start to build. And yes, freedom is lonely sometimes. Yes, freedom is heavy sometimes. Yes, freedom can be misunderstood by those who are still trapped in dependence. But freedom is worth it because freedom gives you back your power. Freedom gives you back your identity. Freedom gives you back your joy. Dependence is like a cagey, comfortable, familiar, but always limited. Freedom is like a field open, risky, full of unknowns, but filled with endless possibility. The cage may feel safe. It will never let you fly. And you were not created to sit behind bars. You were created to soar. So when she says, I live alone without a man, it is not weakness, it is freedom. She has chosen not to be dependent on someone else for her happiness. She has chosen not to chain her destiny to a hand that cannot hold it. She has chosen freedom over dependence, peace over pretense, and truth over lies. Her freedom does not mean she does not want love. It does not mean she does not value partnership. It means she will never again trade her wings for chains. She will never again allow dependence to define her. She will never again let fear convince her that she cannot live without what was never meant to sustain her. There is a strength that can only be discovered when you stand alone, not the kind of alone that comes from abandonment or rejection, the kind of solitude that becomes a sanctuary for your soul. In a world that constantly tells you that you are incomplete without company, without applause, without a partner by your side, solitude feels uncomfortable. But solitude is not punishment, it is preparation. Solitude is not emptiness, it is empowerment. Strength in solitude is the ability to sit in silence and hear your own voice. It is the power to walk without a crowd and not feel lost. It is the courage to build when no one is clapping, to dream when no one is watching, to heal when no one is holding your hand. Strength in solitude is not about being cut off from the world. It is about being connected to yourself in ways that distractions once prevented. Too often, people run from solitude. They drown their silence in noise, their loneliness in unhealthy relationships, their emptiness in shallow pursuits. They fear being alone because being alone forces them to face the truth. Solitude exposes the wounds you have ignored, the insecurities you have hidden, questions you have silenced, but it is in that exposure that healing begins. The very place you fear is the very place you need to go. Strength in solitude is not discovered when everything is easy. It is found when you wake up to an empty room, but still choose to rise. It is found when you walk into a gathering and no one notices you, but you stand tall anyway. It is found when the phone doesn't ring, the invitations don't come, and the support doesn't arrive, yet you keep going. Solitude reveals who you are without the applause, without the validation, without the backup. And if you can stand strong in solitude, you can stand anywhere. There is power in learning how to enjoy your own company. There is power in taking yourself to dinner, walking by yourself in the park, traveling alone, sitting quietly without feeling incomplete. Because when you master solitude, you no longer depend on others to fill a void. You learn that your joy is not determined by who comes or who leaves. Your peace is not dictated by who stays or who walks away. Your worth is not defined by who notices you or who ignores you. Strength in solitude teaches you resilience. When you learn how to survive in silence, you stop panicking when people leave. You stop begging for company that is unworthy of your presence. You stop tolerating relationships that exist only to cure your loneliness. Instead, you learn patience, you learn discernment, you learn to wait for the right voices instead of chasing any voice that will fill the silence. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history were birthed in solitude. Leaders received vision in solitude. Prophets heard God in solitude. Writers wrote their greatest works in solitude. Dreamers imagined futures in solitude. Solitude strips away the noise of the world so you can hear the whisper of destiny. Without it, you are constantly distracted, constantly comparing, constantly performing. But in solitude, you return to your center, you remember who you are. You rediscover what you carry. Strength in solitude also prepares you for relationships. When you know how to stand alone, you no longer enter relationships out of desperation. You no longer cling to people just to avoid the quiet. You no longer compromise your values just to avoid being by yourself. You no longer settle for half love just to feel occupied. Instead, you enter connections as a whole person, not a broken one searching for completion. You know how to give, but you also know how to walk away when giving turns into losing yourself. The world often equates solitude with weakness. They say, she must be lonely, she must be bitter, she must be unwanted. But solitude is not weakness, it is wisdom. Solitude is knowing that not every crowd is worth joining, not every hand is worth holding, not every table is worth sitting at. Solitude is strength because it teaches you that being alone with peace is far better than being surrounded with chaos. Strength in solitude also builds clarity. When you step away from the noise, you begin to see who is real and who is not. You begin to discern what matters and what does not. You begin to hear your own thoughts clearly, to hear God's guidance much more sharply, to see your path more plainly. In solitude, distractions fall away and priorities rise. You begin to build your life not on trends, not on opinions, not on pressure, but on purpose. It takes courage to embrace solitude. It takes courage to say, I would rather sit alone in truth than be surrounded in lies. It takes courage to silence the need for validation and live in alignment with your soul. It takes courage to walk alone when the crowd goes another way, but that courage shapes you. It makes you strong, unshakable, steady. Strength in solitude means you don't crumble when seasons change. It means you don't lose yourself when people walk away. It means you don't chase what isn't meant for you. It means you are grounded enough to weather storms, rooted enough to handle rejection, and confident enough to stand still until the right doors open. And let me tell you, solitude is not forever. Solitude is seasonal. It is a place of preparation. It is a training ground. It is where God molds you, shapes you, and equips you. But if you cannot stand in solitude, you will always collapse under pressure. If you cannot handle silence, you will always be distracted by noise. If you cannot stand alone, you will always compromise just to belong. So when someone looks at her and says, why does she live alone? Why does she walk by herself? Why does she stand without a partner? The answer is clear, because she has found strength in solitude, because she has discovered that her power is not borrowed, it is built, because she has realized that solitude is not her enemy, it is her strength. Strength in solitude is the anchor that keeps you steady when life shakes. It is the armor that protects you from desperation. It is the foundation that prepares you for love, for leadership, for destiny. And once you taste that strength, you will never again trade it for shallow companionship or noisy approval. There comes a point in life when you realize that settling is more dangerous than waiting. Settling looks like safety, but it is really surrender. Settling looks like comfort, but it is really compromise. Settling looks like progress, but it is really delay. To refuse to settle is to declare, I will not trade my destiny for convenience. I will not hand over my future for the sake of temporary satisfaction. I will not lower the standard of my worth just to say I have something or someone in my life. Refusing to settle means you know who you are and you know what you carry. It means you are unwilling to water down your value just to be accepted. It means you are no longer willing to walk in circles when you were designed to soar. Settling is cheap. Destiny is costly. Settling is easy. Purpose is demanding. Settling is common. Greatness is rare. Many people settle not because they don't dream big, but because they grow tired of waiting. They grow weary of the process. They confuse delay with denial. They begin to believe that good enough is the same as God's best. But when you settle, you rob yourself of what was promised. Trade diamonds for stones. You trade abundance for scraps. You trade fulfillment for frustration. To refuse to settle is to be patient in the waiting season. It is to stand firm in the belief that what is meant for you cannot be taken from you, and what is not meant for you will never be sustained by you. It is choosing to remain empty-handed for a season rather than grabbing whatever is available and calling it enough. Because when you settle, you may fill your hands, but you starve your soul. Settling in relationships is one of the most dangerous traps. How many people stay with someone who does not honor them, all because they are afraid of being alone? How many people accept half love, toxic love, broken love? Because they think, at least I have somebody. But hear me, loneliness with peace is better than companionship with chaos. To refuse to settle is to say, I will not stay with someone who cannot see me, cannot value me, cannot love me at the level of my worth. I am worth more than being tolerated. I am worth more than being silenced. I am worth more than being diminished. I will not settle for less than love that is true, whole, and healthy. Settling doesn't only happen in relationships. It happens in careers, in dreams, in personal growth. Too many people bury their vision because they are afraid to risk failure. They take jobs that pay the bills but starve their purpose. They accept opportunities that look stable but kill their passion. Settling says, this is safe, so I'll stay here. But refusing to settle says, I would rather start small in purpose than live large in pretense. I would rather risk failure in my calling than succeed in something that doesn't fulfill me. Refusing to settle requires courage. It requires saying no when everything around you pressures you to say yes. It requires walking away from almost right to wait for completely right. It requires ignoring the voices of people who tell you your standards are too high, that your dreams are too big, that your patience is foolish. But refusing to settle is not foolish. It is faith. It is trusting that the creator of your destiny knows how to deliver what he promised. Settling is often rooted in fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being behind, fear of missing out. But fear is a liar. Fear will convince you that your time is running out when in reality, your time is being prepared. Fear will convince you that no one else will come when in truth, the right person is being shaped for you as much as you are being shaped for them. Fear will convince you that your dream is too far when in truth, it is closer than you think. If only you don't settle for something smaller along the way. To refuse to settle means you honor your future more than your frustration. It means you see beyond the moment. It means you understand that temporary loneliness, temporary lack, temporary waiting is better than permanent regret. Because when you settle, regret always follows. You will always look back and think, if only I had waited. If only I had believed a little longer. If only I had trusted that something better was coming. Refusing to settle means you trust yourself. You trust your intuition. You trust your values. You trust your standards. You stop apologizing for wanting more, for asking for better, for demanding what aligns with your spirit. You stop shrinking your desires to fit into other people's fears. You stop pretending that crumbs are a feast when you were born to sit at the table of abundance. And refusing to settle is not about pride. It is not about arrogance. It is about alignment. It is about refusing to live a life that is smaller than the one you were created for. It is about refusing to attach yourself to people who cannot go where you are going. It is about refusing to water down your identity just to make others comfortable. Some will not understand why you refuse to settle. They will call you picky. They will call you stubborn. They will say you think too highly of yourself. But they are wrong. Refusing to settle is not about thinking too highly. It is about refusing to think too low. It is about refusing to belittle yourself for the sake of belonging. It is about refusing to compromise your destiny for the illusion of security. There will be moments when the waiting feels unbearable. There will be nights when the silence feels heavy. There will be days when you question if your standards are too high, if your vision is too bold, if your patience is in vain. But remember this, settling may feel easier in the moment, but it will always cost you more in the long run. Waiting may be hard. It will always be worth it when what you waited for finally arrives. To refuse to settle is to live by faith, not by fear. It is to believe that your steps are ordered. It is to trust that your future is protected. It is to know that your worth does not decrease just because time is passing. You are not behind. You are being built. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. You are not empty. You are being positioned for fullness. So when they ask, why does she live alone? Why does she wait? Why does she walk away from what looks good on the outside? The answer is this: because she refuses to settle. Because she knows her worth is too high to be bargained. Because she knows her destiny is too sacred to be delayed. Because she knows her peace is too priceless to be traded. Refusing to settle is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is not pride, it is power. It is not stubbornness, it is strength. It is the declaration of a woman who knows who she is, who knows what she carries, who knows she will never again accept less than what she deserves. So lift your head, hold your standard, guard your peace, and trust the process. Do not settle, not in love, not in purpose, not in life. Because settling may give you something now, but refusing to settle will give you everything later.